The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. Sam, the Suns are 8-2. We got 10 games into the season. How you doing?
I'm good. Look, I understand it was a loss last night. We did that on playback with the Kings game, and it was kind of following the same pattern that we've seen again and again with this team this season, Mike, which is, clutch game after clutch game. But generally, we've hit this important 10-game benchmark. We're going to do what we always do 10 games into a season and cut through some stats. We're also going to take some listener questions and concerns via voicemail in the latter half of this episode. But right now, I understand there's injuries, there's news. We're going to cover it all. I feel pretty good about where the Suns are to open the season.
Yeah, I found myself saying after that Kings game, well, they're not going to win them all. And, sometimes I take losses a little harder. That one was one where I was like, okay, Devin Booker was clearly not right. I think he's sick. He hinted at that post game. No Kevin Durant. Bradley Beal took a back to the knee. He's not on the injury report for the next game. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, massive sigh of relief when I saw that, to be honest. Because not only that, he took what was a contact injury, so that was the first good sign, right? Kind of a contact knee injury, not a non-contact injury. But the fact that he stayed in the game and was like diving on the ground and continued, making a couple shots, missing more shots than he was making at that point. It was just really hard. Like, all the guys were gassed, you could tell. But the fact that he stayed in the game and was still hustling was crazy.
Yeah, he tried. He really put a lot of effort into the last few minutes of overtime as well. Nurkic also didn't play the second half after, an aggravated ankle injury. And, in that particular game, the Suns couldn't make a single three, it felt like. So it's a large combination of things that went into that loss that, although I still think the Suns had the opportunity to win, without Devin Booker being himself, I think it would have been really tough, especially with DeMar DeRozan playing the way he was.
Shout out to DeMar. He's been, dude, I mean, I've been a fan of his for years, but I think there was still a portion of the NBA greater community that kind of analyzed. We talked about the Kings in the offseason, right? We did a couple episodes where we talked about, like, here's every team in the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference. I feel like some people viewed the DeMar acquisition as just, and I understand there are spacing concerns, those will continue to exist, but just like he's replacing Harrison Barnes. He's so much more than that. And he's shown in the first 10 games he's so much more than that. He's arguably the most important guy in their offense right now to open the season. Sabonis is still so important. De'Aaron Fox is still so important. But the way that DeMar has opened the season and the way, let's be honest, he really cooked the Suns and cooked Royce O'Neal last night over and over again, he's been stellar.
He's their most efficient shot creator right now. And he has been pretty efficient for years. For the Kings fans, it probably was fun to get a game where it's like, oh, they traded for a guy and he like really carried them to victory. So that's always fun for them. Just sucks that it was against the Suns. I was thinking about that game in particular, that the thing about drastically increasing the amount of threes that you shoot as a team, which we're going to talk about as part of this episode, I'm sure, is that there will be games where they just don't make a lot of them. And they'll just lose those games. You know what I mean? Like, those are just losses. You think about the Houston Rockets infamously in 2018 missing, I think it was 27 threes in a row?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
That's the notorious example.
It's like an absolute extreme version of that, but that's kind of something that can happen with teams that shoot a ton of threes, is that over the aggregate of a season, it's going to win more games than it loses, but in individual game scenarios, there'll be games where you shoot 31% or whatever from three.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
Probably it's hard. It's going to be hard to win that one.
I would point out, like, the Suns are shooting more threes. They're still not top 5 in the league.
But that was over 50 threes in that game.
I know. And this is, it's related to what I was about to say, though, which is not having Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is such a counterweight against that. Like, even though they have been taking more threes in the games with Kevin Durant, if you miss 5, 6, 7 in a row, you have Kevin Durant, right? And you have Devin Booker and you have Bradley Beal. Now that KD is out for a couple of weeks with calf injury, and for anyone sleeping under a rock who is not yet aware that Kevin Durant will be reevaluated in a couple weeks for the Suns, it's going to be harder and more role players, guys like Royce O'Neal, guys like Grayson Allen, guys who really thrive from the Tyus Jones. I think we've already seen in the past couple of games, Tyus Jones, the heavier offensive burden that he's carrying. And honestly, he's done a great job just through these 2 games. But these role players are going to be shooting a lot more threes. Absolutely.
Kevin Durant missing 2 weeks. That's the real story of this team right now. He's going to be missing at least the next 6 or so games. The Suns have a back-to-back and another few games in the next week, and it's a real tough. Every single portion of the schedule has tough games right now because the West is so stacked. Minnesota coming up, OKC on Friday. OKC without a center, playing right now with Jalen Williams, the short one, jumping
massive,
center.
Massive loss for them with Chet fracturing his hip is
rough.
A crazy injury for anyone who didn't.
They
see
don't
that
even
news.
know what his timeline to return is. They're going to revisit it in 8 to 10 weeks. They said so. That's half the season.
Revisit in 8 to 10 weeks, but man, I'm not a medical expert, obviously, but that is an injury that could keep him out till the playoffs. It's an injury that could keep him out 3/4 of the season potentially.
Yeah.
I still think they're going to find their way to, eventually Hartenstein's going to be back and they're going to scrap their way to a lot of victories regardless. They have a good amount of depth and a lot of talent. They also have picks, if they wanted to make trades. But that's such a loss for them. And honestly, you look around the Western Conference right now, Ja Morant is now out. KD, Chet, who am I missing? There's someone else went down the last couple of days that I can't remember.
Kawhi's been out. Aaron Gordon
for a few weeks.
Denver Nuggets.
For the Denver Nuggets.
That was pretty big. Jamal Murray was injured, but he's back now. I'm sure there's other people that were missing here, but yeah, it's not. The Suns are getting hit kind of hard with it all at once, though, I will say, because the combination, Nurkic, who actually was playing well over the last few games, missing a half and potentially missing more games is a little frustrating. Ryan Dunn, who was one of the more important players on the Suns, also missing a game and playing hurt, but playing well. I think in the last game against Sacramento, we were begging for him at the end of that game to come in and be somebody that could actually contest DeMar DeRozan's shots, actually make it a little bit more difficult. Poor Royce O'Neal was on an island by himself. Doubling would have helped too. And then Devin Booker, who's playing through it, but appears to not be. I was curious watching the end of the game where he was airballing shots, was exhausted. We were watching on a League Pass feed, so we get the feed during the timeouts too, so you could just see him looking exhausted at the end of that game, just not right. And I was curious, would he even be playing this game if Kevin Durant was here? He's just trying to fight through it. But that does bring up something that I wanted to talk about before we get to the stats is what can the Suns do to counter KD being gone? And before the game, I mentioned they're probably going to shoot a ton more threes. This is just something they can do to counter the efficiency gap because KD is one of the most efficient scorers in the NBA. That did happen in the Sacramento game. I'm curious how much that will carry over if Devin Booker starts playing more like himself. But the other obvious thing is it's time for Booker and Beal to really step up and show that there can still be offensive stars. Obviously, Booker's still doing it at times.
Yeah.
Rough go of it at shooting. We'll talk about that in the stats section. Bradley Beal, look, his 17 points a game or whatever he was averaging before, that needs to go up at this point. We need him to do a little bit better than that. But is there anything else that stands out?
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head, particularly with Book. I think there's been a style that he's adapted in the first 9 games before KD went down, which just has to change now. And he has to be more aggressive and looking for his own shot. I think he's been battling with so much. Maybe he twisted his ankle in one game, then being sick the next game. I'm not particularly worried about him having to find that level. I think it's something we've seen from him a million times before, and we'll see it again in the next 6 games. But yeah, it's just he's kind of scoring has taken a back seat for Devin Booker this season. I think he's only averaging 23 points per game right now. And yeah, just like you said with Beal, that needs to change over the next 6 games too.
Curious if they can find ways. They're small, defensively. It seems like Ryan Dunn's going to be that starter. Royce O'Neal, one of the better players off the bench for the Suns, probably the best. Actually, I think we could just say he's the best player off the bench for the Suns so far. not starting, and it's going to be Ryan Dunn when as long as he remains healthy. And I think that's the right choice defensively, because KD, as important as he was on offense, even Coach Bud was talking about this. His role on defense was huge for this team as well. He was, the main help side defender, but he also guarded a lot of guys at the point of attack who were bigger wings for this team, and that's not something that Royce, we saw it in the Sacramento game. That's not something that Royce, he can occasionally do it, and he's willing to do it, but
he tried.
It's Ryan Dunn's better at it. That's the one thing I think on-ball defense Ryan Dunn's better at. I think Ryan Dunn right now, probably a worse off-ball defender, gets a little ball-watchy, but overall, I think on the ball, he's probably better at that.
Yeah,
outside of the being foul prone.
He just has attributes you can't teach. A relentlessness to his game, a 7'1" wingspan, a great leaping ability. I think you could say both the same things about him and Oso, both rookies, in that are they a little overzealous sometimes defensively? Are they going to pick up too many fouls and maybe leap into a passing lane when they shouldn't or jump when they shouldn't? Yes. But can you absolutely trust those guys, especially Ryan Dunn, as one-on-one on-ball defenders? Yeah, I think you can. And I was surprised, I'll just say that Dunn did not close the game out, or that Bud at some point did not go back to him against DeMar last night. I think part of that is just something maybe that Bud knew that the rest of us didn't. Essentially that Dunn, it was his first game returning from his own injury, and that maybe he was on some sort of unofficial minutes restriction, and that there were reasons that he didn't play because Royce, like you said, he was getting cooked. It was tough.
Let's do some stats. So this is something you mentioned we've done throughout the history of this podcast, every 10, 15 or so games, where we take a look at the season as a whole, each of us individually gather some statistics that stood out to us without really talking about it ahead of time, and then just sort of throw them at each other to talk about the season and really try to use some numbers to show the state of the season so far. So 10 games was a good place to start. I'm going to go ahead and start, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
We were just talking about him. So Devin Booker, this is something that I've been talking with you about, talking about it on Playback, occasionally on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. Monte Morris has not played the last 4 games. And before that, against the Lakers, he played 2.5 minutes. Against the Clippers, he played 3.5 minutes. And then Portland, in a game where I think they didn't necessarily, 7.5 minutes in that game. So he played a little bit more in that one. But overall, 4 games DNP and a total of about 12 minutes in the previous 3 games before that. So essentially has completely fallen out of the rotation for this team. And don't get me wrong, I think Monte Morris will have a moment on this team where he needs to play, and I think he's capable and ready to play, but right now the Suns are not using him, and that means that playmaking void needs to be filled, and lately it has been Devin Booker that is filling that void
in spades. Filling in spades.
In the last 6 games for the Suns, Devin Booker is averaging 9.3 assists and only 1.7 turnovers. Those are Chris Paul numbers. And in that time, 6th in the NBA in assists per game. I think we are in the midst of the best playmaking stretch of Devin Booker's career. Short, obviously, we're only talking about small sample sizes here. But he is absolutely dealing on those passes, and in a time where his shot is kind of struggling. I'm going to read one more part of this, and I'm going to let you talk about it here. But this is the shooting percentage from 3 off of passes from Devin Booker. So
love
just when
stat.
Devin Booker
always love
assists
this stat.
to guys, it's always insane. And right now, it's insane as well. Bradley Beal, 55% from 3 off passes from Book. Tyus Jones, 52%. Royce O'Neal, 46%. KD, 40%. Even Grayson, 37%, and Nurkic 37%. The only player who is shooting below their average off of passes from Devin Booker, weirdly, is Ryan Dunn, who's only shooting 27%. But the rest of the team, because of the gravity that comes from his scoring and how on the money his passes can be, is shooting well above their averages from the 3-point line. What do you think about Devin Booker's playmaking so far?
Yeah, so no doubt, the inverse of this is that maybe he's struggled a little bit to be aggressive scoring wise, and some of his numbers are down. And we'll talk about that in a second. But he's more than making up for it, I think, as a facilitator. And I think you're absolutely right. This is the best playmaking stretch in his regular season career. The fact that he's not turning the ball over, the fact that he's adhering to a lot of Bud's principles. I think Bud himself would tell you that with the right spacing, you take any superstar, but especially a guy as talented as Devin Booker, and you surround them with the right floor spacers. There are never really any lineups that I can think of that have two non-shooters next to Devin Booker right now, right? It's like a lot of lineups where you give him either Mason Plumlee or Yusuf Nurkic. I particularly love the ones with Mason Plumlee because then I feel like he has a true lob threat if he needs it. And then you just surround him with shooters. Tyus Jones can shoot. Royce O'Neal can shoot. Grayson Allen can shoot. The other stars can shoot. Even Ryan Dunn, unexpectedly, but there he is, can shoot. And that just means that Booker's gravity has so much more of an impact on what the rest of those guys can do. So yeah, he's been awesome. I think if you look at the stats, he's tied for a career high in assists per 36 minutes, and he's at a career low in turnovers per 36 minutes. So yeah, no doubt. I mean, he has just been a terrific playmaker right now, and it's made it a lot easier to ignore the fact that yes, he is shooting poorly from deep. I've still noticed it, and we still know that it has to get better over the next 6 games if they want to win games without Kevin Durant. But the playmaking's been awesome.
Yeah, I think you're talking about tied for assists per 36 in his career. That's including the games where Monte Morris is playing. And if Monte is not playing, and I think there's a good chance he's just not, when this team is healthy, he's just not going to be part of the rotation.
Yeah.
There's still, I think it's 10 games in, there's still some experimentation. There's still different types of teams that this team could play. And that means different combinations of rosters. I think they've played like 130 different combinations of 5-man lineups so far, by the way. So lots of stuff is happening with just trying to figure out who the right guys are. But if you got to get Grayson minutes, if you got to get Royce minutes, if you got to get Tyus minutes, you got to get Brad and Book minutes. You got to find ways for Dunn to play because he's forcing your hand there. You have to find minutes for him. It's tough to find extra minutes for Monte. And, they're going to be small in their starting lineup. If they can be a little bit bigger in times where Tyus is off the floor, I think it's good to take advantage of that. Monte's going to have his moment. Maybe Tyus misses some games. Maybe
Grayson,
one of Brad or Beal or Grayson, misses games.
I mean, honestly,
need a little bit more dribbling. Yeah.
I know he's small. Of course he's small. But even if Tyus doesn't miss a game, the second that a guy like Grayson misses a game, or maybe even Royce or Brad, or you have to think that Monte's going to get his looks, and it's going to come eventually. He's not going to go the entire season without playing. I do want to talk about one of my stats, if we can throw it over to me now.
Sure.
Is just mentioning the flip side of this, which is that scoring wise, it's been a weird season for Devin Booker. We can admit it.
Yes.
And again, I think he's playing through stuff. What exactly is his sickness right now? Gerald Bourguet from PHNX asked him in the locker room.
Tried to figure it out,
and he got a bit of a smirk.
It was a HIPAA violation. I reported Gerald actually.
Okay, yeah. Well, I'm sure they'll get right on throwing him in prison for that. Book smirked at him a little bit and didn't exactly give him a concise answer. But I think it was clear that it's not rhinovirus. It's not the common cold. So yeah, he's averaging 23 points per game. Per 36, he's at 22.3 points per game, which is his lowest per 36 scoring rate since his rookie year, Mike, 10 years ago at this point, or 9 years ago. He's at 43% from the field, 32% from deep. I think that's the big one, right? He's shooting more threes, but he's only shooting 32%. How concerned are we about that? Did Bud break Devin Booker? Should he go back to who he was, of just being the midi assassin?
A little bit, yeah.
And yeah, well, yeah. I'll throw it to you. So those are the numbers. We know he's struggling as a shooter right now. Did Bud break Devin Booker? I'll throw you the softball.
I don't think Bud broke Devin Booker. I think honestly, the way that I've looked at it in the last few games in particular, where he's struggled, because the 3-point shooting was kind of fine, like 5 games into the season, and the last few games is where it kind of cratered. He's overthinking it a little bit. I think he knows that the legs aren't quite there, whether it's the sickness or the ankle sprain or rolling his ankle in that last game a few games ago. I think he's overthinking it just a little bit, and I think he understands the role that he's been asked to do with, Monte playing a little less minutes and sort of splitting the playmaking duties with Tyus, which I think has allowed Brad to be better as well, right? Brad kind of struggled either to isolate last year or kind of struggled with turnovers when he was asked to be the point guard. The role that Devin Booker has been asked, by the way, he's been asked to change his role year after year after year after year. And it's another year of that, I think. We expected maybe Devin Booker would be less of a point guard this year. It turns out he's more of a point guard this year than he was last year, at least so far. And I think he's overthinking it a little bit because he doesn't currently trust his three-point shot. So he's still shooting them when he's wide open. But there are times where he's turning down shots, either from the mid-range. He's gotten blocked on a few mid-range shots where he's just, that's not normal. Like, we've watched enough of Devin Booker and his career to know that when he gets blocked from the mid-range, something weird's going on. So I think there's just a little bit of that weirdness. And, I think once he's back and fully healthy here, he's playing through it. Like, you got to give him credit to play through it, whether it's COVID or whatever it is. We don't really know.
So many of these guys are playing through it. Nurk is playing through it. Brad is playing through it. I know they didn't just have. Thank God that the KD news wasn't as bad as what the Thunder have to go through now with Chet. Yeah. That really, really sucks. But that doesn't mean, even if these guys are suiting up, even if they're playing, you can tell so many of them are just playing through pain already. This has been a really bizarre NBA season. It feels like we say that a lot, but this season especially, so many contending teams are already dealing with season-altering injuries, and the Suns are not exempt from that. The thing that gives me hope about Book's shooting is if you dig into the splits, he's at 37% on pull-up threes. He's at 26% on catch-and-shoot threes through 10 games.
Yeah, that's not normal for him, right?
26% on catch-and-shoot threes. And, of course, when a guy like him takes a catch-and-shoot three, it's Devin Booker, so the defense is closing out. But those are much more likely to be open shots, right, in the flow of the offense.
And traditionally shoots better at those than pull-ups, like by a few percentage points, yeah.
There's just no way that rate holds all season. Like, to me, it's small sample size, high variance stuff, and it's going to regress to the mean sooner rather than later, and he's going to be fine. That's what I think.
Traditionally, Devin Booker gets even more efficient as the season rolls on anyway. I did look at last year's first 10 games of the season. He was shooting about 36% from three. This year, 32%. But I have a lot of faith in him. We've seen enough to know the kind of player he is. And honestly, the stats are pretty similar the last few years, so they're probably going to be similar again this year. It's just about the team playing better around him.
Well, I think I mentioned it on a pod a couple weeks ago or maybe a week ago already, but Booker every year feels out the new system, feels out his new teammates, tries to facilitate for others first, and then eventually the All-Star break comes and he's averaging 40 a game for a month. It happens. The explosion is going to come. Now, maybe this year we want the explosion to come a little bit sooner because we need him to score right now. But feeling it out for a little bit is just Devin Booker's way. And as Suns fans who've watched the guy for a decade, we should kind of know that by now.
I'm just not going to doubt him at this point. I think he's going to be fine, and we're probably going to see a week of him playing really well at some point. Maybe not till next week if he starts feeling better. But with Kevin Durant out, he knows the assignment. He understands the responsibility that he holds. And I think he's going to take that really seriously.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Hand-picked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. famouscigars.com/cam.
since we were on shooting here, Grayson Allen, one of my stats here. It's not a complicated stat. He's shooting 32% from 3.
I have a feeling we're going to get questions about this later. I haven't looked at any of the questions yet. So
I haven't either,
as they come in.
32% from 3. It's, he gained a lot of weight. Much was made, muscle-wise, about that.
You make it sound like he was just, like, eating Snickers and, like, James Hardening it. Like, going to strip clubs.
You carry your body differently when it weighs more, just period. Regardless if it's fat or muscle. It's muscle in this case. You can tell just by looking at him. Has that impacted his shot? Are you, okay, a better way to put it is, not are you worried about it? What percentage are you worried about this? Like if you had to rank it on a scale of 1 to 10.
1 to 10?
This is something we're doing this year, I guess.
Yeah, we did it with Nurkic, and I feel like we've already talked ourselves down after really panicking about Nurkic. I'm at a 3, maybe even a 2. The thing about Grayson, so Grayson had one of the best three-point shooting seasons in Suns history, maybe the best three-point shooting season in Suns history
volume
last
and
year.
Percentage-wise, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Before that, he was a career 38% three-point shooter, right? Good, really good. But then last year, he was 46%. And so for me, coming into this season, I was glad they extended him. I think I have a little bit more faith in him as like a playmaker and stuff, a dribbler than you have in our conversations about it in the past. But like in my thought process, I was thinking like, yeah, he can regress back to being a 38, 39% three-point shooter this year. And I think that's fine. I think he's still going to live up to his contract value just because he has the talent and he has the skill and the basketball IQ. Now, so far he's shooting 32%, right? So that's too low. He cannot continue to shoot this poorly and be as essential a member of the team's rotation as we all want him to be. But it's just to say that, like, we need to lower the expectations a little bit, I guess, of, like, what we need out of Grayson exactly.
He's making a lot of money now. I mean, I know, like, in the modern NBA, everybody is, but, like,
He's making 15 a year. I could name you, like, 50 guys making 15 a year who are bums. I don't know.
Well, I bet there's a lot of them are shooting better than 32% from 3, though. You know what I mean?
Okay, let's revisit this conversation in 2 weeks. How about that? We revisit this conversation.
I think we're going to have to.
After the next 6 games without Kevin Durant.
If he looked exactly the same as last year, would your worry be less physically? If he looked exactly the same.
You mean if he was shooting 46%? Yeah, I mean, I would be singing his praises.
If he
you mean like physically?
Same.
If he looks like the same person, if he never added the weight, you're saying?
Yeah.
No, I don't care about the weight. I think the weight's fine.
I would feel more confident that he would be able to bounce back if he looked physically exactly the same as last year. I don't know if that matters. I really don't, but I do think it does impact you a little bit. I think it has. In the opposite way, people have, players in the NBA have lost weight and become better shooters. So gaining weight stands to reason that it could impact your shot in one way or the other.
I think he'll play himself into it throughout the course of the season. Maybe he's still adjusting, getting his legs under him, his body weight percentage. 8 games.
He has missed a few.
He'll be fine. I mean, the other thing is, like, also in Bud's system, right? And we pointed this out. He stands literally further back. I didn't look at the stats for this, but I just feel like he's taking deeper threes. Maybe that to a certain extent.
Yeah, maybe he shouldn't.
Yeah, maybe that he shouldn't. But so he's doing more of the Eric Gordon thing.
He literally looks like the worst stretches of Eric Gordon offensively this year so far.
I think that's overdoing it. I don't think.
Well, I mean, missing 32% from 3 and the drives where he's just driving into contact.
He's still a better defender than Eric Gordon.
Defensively, he is better. Don't
forget though that that's a reason he put on the weight too. Is because this team needed bigger guys, and Grayson said, "Okay, I'm Batman. That's me. I'm answering the call."
Maybe if he knew that Ryan Dunn was on the way,
I think he'll be fine.
I'm concerned. I mean, like if you're a 3, I'm like a 4.5. I'm not like panicking yet.
I know. Okay, I'll say this though. I know why you're worried because we were thinking like about trading this guy too, right?
Well, I think that the worse he plays, the more you think about trading him. To be honest,
no, sell high.
I mean, if he's that,
why are you trying to sell an asset low? Wait until he recoups some of the value.
Because they need good players this year. Ultimately, that's really what it is. They just need to be good this year. KD. Look, he's defying all odds with his age over and over again, but we'll see how long it lasts overall. What do you got? What's your next one?
I'm not too worried about Grayson. Let's give it 6 or 7 more games and revisit that conversation. My next stat is also about threes, though, but it's a team stat about threes. Early shot clock three-pointers. Big point of emphasis for Budenholzer this year. I think when we talk about how the team is different, it's not just that they're shooting more threes. And when we talk about them playing faster too, this is the other big thing. You look at the pace statistics right now for the Suns. I think they're 20th, 21st in pace, something like that. I didn't write it down. They're not literally a fast team, but they're a fast team when they need to be. In certain
all those
ways.
Clutch minutes, I think too, has slowed that pace down.
Absolutely, clutch statistics. You're more reliant on a half-court offense. That's going to slow you down. Early threes. Last year, the Suns were 20th in the NBA in the number of threes that they took with, this is a bit of a complicated stat, 20th in the NBA in the number of threes they took with at least 18 seconds on the shot clock, right? So 24 to 18, basically.
Transition threes.
Threes, but transition threes, pushing off of makes or misses. You could technically get a shot within those first 6 seconds, like that kind of 6 seconds or less offense, if you want to think about it that way. They took 3.9 a game last year. That was 20th in the NBA. They shot 38% on those threes. This year, they are 8th in the NBA. They take 6.4 of them a game. So that's 2.5 more early shot clock threes that they take per game. They're taking more threes in general, yes, but they're really, really applying. Oh, and by the way, I didn't mention 48% on those early shot clock threes so far this season. We're seeing it from Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on pull-ups, but we're absolutely seeing it. Who we're seeing it from the most is Tyus Jones on look-ahead passes. Not Tyus Jones as a shooter, but if he has the ball in his hands, he's looking ahead for who's open. He's generating those early shot clock threes for the Suns. So again, pace, they might be 20th, but they're getting transition offense because they have a point guard who understands that this is one of Bud's biggest points of emphasis, from stars who have internalized this message of this is how we're going to score early points. Are they going to shoot 48% on these shots all season? No, maybe not. But they're clearly doing a much better job at just listening to Bud's messaging, right? Instilling his system. And this is something I've been really encouraged by and I hope is basically something that sticks for them all season long.
I mean, it's one of the most effective shots in the NBA. It's sort of counterintuitive, I think, to a lot of old school basketball minds to shoot the three in transition, but it's not necessarily, at times it does replace a layup at the rim, right? But it's not necessarily doing that a lot of times, because in transition, if you're moving the ball up and the defenders are on their heels a little bit, backpedaling, there might be 3 players in the paint, and you still have a wide open pull-up 3 if you're pulling up from the 3-point line in transition. So, there was no layup available, but they still found a way to get a shot in those first 6 seconds of the shot clock. I think those are really, really valuable shots, and the Suns need to continue to take them. 48%, unsustainably high probably, but still they're going to be open. Those shots are like really open shots. And look, the point of every offense is to find the best high value, high efficiency, open shot. And if you do it in the first few seconds of the shot clock, you got to take it. You're saving your legs a little bit. I mean, obviously you're running at the beginning of that, but you don't have to set the screens, run around screens, and do all the other things that come with an offense in those cases. I think they could play faster, though. You brought up the pace. They're 20th in pace. They're not pushing it after makes very much. And I think they need to push it after makes a little bit. In the Sacramento game, I think that game was particularly hard. Sacramento does a lot of running. That's a little bit harder. But in Miami, in particular, there was a stretch in Miami in Phoenix, but against Miami, where the Suns just kind of turned it on and started running, and that's what turned the game. It flipped the game into the Suns' favor. Look, Miami crawled their way back into it and had a chance to tie it at the end, but they turned it on after makes, after misses. They just ran at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. It flipped the entire game, and they look really good when they do that. They have effective players. I understand they're playing a lot of minutes right now. KD in particular.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Could have led to his injury.
More minutes than we expected from the star players. Absolutely.
So that's a little tougher. But if they can find ways to pick up the pace even more, I think it actually would be. It could increase the efficiency of their offense even more, which honestly hasn't been as efficient as it feels.
No,
you can look at it. You expect it to be higher.
This team is 8-2. They're 13th in net rating right now. Right? we're still waiting. Maybe it'll be in the next 2 games for people who are listening to this in the first couple days after this episode comes out. We're waiting for the blowout. We're waiting for the 20-30 point win where they just explode and fire on all cylinders. It has not happened yet, but hopefully it does soon. What do you got? Next stat.
Royce O'Neal, career high. 9.3 rebounds per 36.
Wow.
And a 14% rebound percentage, which is also a career high for him.
This is a good one. I didn't think of this.
Royce O'Neal is just finding ways to get rebounds over and over again. Royce O'Neal, look, but depending on the website you look up, might be 6'4", he might be 6'6", I don't know, depending on where you're looking up his height. But he's definitely not a power forward height, right? He's definitely not a big. He's out there that essentially guard height, finding rebounds over and over again. And I think, part of it is that he's good at it. He's finding ways to do it. But another part of it is on Bud just sending another guy at rebounds at times, because the offensive rebound is close to a percentage for him, is close to a career high for him as well. And Royce is kind of another stat to add to this, is kind of the king of the net rating for the Suns right now, the old Dario Saric stat that we like to talk about. There's always a guy off the bench that is number 1 in net rating for the Suns, it seems, in the James Jones era. A connector, if you will, that's not necessarily scoring a lot of points, but someone who moves the ball well and finds ways to do things offensively.
In recent years, it feels like it's always the guy who plays the least with whoever the starting center is. That's what it's been.
Yeah, it's true.
But yes, true. Royce has been
Although
very,
the
very
Nurkic Royce 2-man lineup combination is very good. Actually.
Is it? Okay, I'm glad to hear that.
But yeah, 1.6, I looked it up too while we were talking. 1.6 offensive rebounds per game is also a career high for him. He's playing a lot of minutes right now, but I just, he's doing a lot right now. He's scoring, he's up to 10 points per game right now. His efficiency is through the roof. He's shooting almost 50% from the three-point line, basically the Grayson shooting that we got last year. 2.3 assists per game. But the rebounds is something that I didn't anticipate him being good at. 6.7 rebounds a game right now, which is surprisingly not a career high for him because he played more minutes in Utah, but on a minute-by-minute basis, he's rebounding more than he ever has in his career. Yeah,
the next evolution, the modern evolution of Charles Barkley, one might say. As a former, he's not that good. But I was trying to think of who's the best 6'4" rebounder of all time. It's clearly Chuck, right? If Chuck is actually 6'4", maybe he's another.
I mean, Russell Westbrook's really good.
He's another classic guy who maybe he's 6'5", maybe he's 6'6".
Yeah.
How tall was Rodman? Was Rodman taller than that? 6'7"?
I think 6'6", yeah, 6'7", probably,
6'7". Yeah, Royce isn't quite at the level of those guys, but he's certainly doing the dirty work that needs to be done on this team right now, and that a lot of other wings among this group just are not capable of doing. Even guys like Ryan Dunn, who is very physical as a defender, but has not really found. And Ryan Dunn is literally bigger. I think in some ways he's more physical. He's probably thinner, but he's more physically imposing in some ways than a guy like Royce O'Neal. He can't hope to be the rebounder that Royce O'Neal has been this season. Oso Ighodaro, another example of, he's played some minutes. Not a stellar rebounder. Of course, he's undersized for his position. So Royce is really holding it down for, some of these other guys, making up for their flaws. And he's been awesome. I think, another thing we've seen from him, maybe a little bit too much in some cases, but in some cases it's worked really well, is just a little bit more attacking off the bounce. Obviously, he loves the floater. I don't remember what team it was against. Was it the Miami game where he had a clutch and one? Or was it Dallas? No, it was Dallas. Where he went 7 for 8 and he made all his threes, but he also shot clock close to expiring, broke down the defense one time, ended up in an and one in the fourth quarter. That was an awesome play for him. And we've just seen a little bit of contribution from Royce on all fronts this season, and he's going to play a lot in the next 2 weeks.
He's been really good. I know we're saying this after he got destroyed by DeMar DeRozan.
He did.
And even I think there was some criticism lobbied at Coach Budenholzer for just leaving Royce on it. But Royce has earned that level of trust And it is one game where they lost, or maybe they had a chance to win had they doubled or put a different guy on him. But DeMar DeRozan was playing in a way that was difficult to stop him, no matter who. They
definitely should have doubled.
Yeah, but, I think doubling would have been smart.
You know, like even if they didn't, so I would have put Dunn out there instead of Royce at a certain point. But even if you wanted to just leave Royce in, they should have doubled once. Yeah. It is what it is. We're moving on to the next one. I got one more stat, and then we should hit the voicemails, right?
Yeah, I got a couple of little quick ones at the end, too.
Okay, we'll do quick ones. Yeah. I want to talk about touches.
I looked at those, too.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Who is first on the Suns? Should I quiz you? How recently did you look at them?
Yeah, today.
Okay, so I won't quiz you.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll quiz you about. I'll quiz you about the league as a whole. Is that okay?
Yeah, I didn't look at that.
Cool. So I think what's funny is, we talk a lot about heliocentrism these days in the NBA. What is heliocentrism? It's the idea that you have an offense that revolves around one player, one Sun.
It's the nerd word for ball hog. Yeah.
Sure. But here's the example. The most heliocentric offense in the NBA today, guy who is by far number one in the league in touches, 115 touches per game to be precise.
Let me guess this. Yeah.
Who is that?
Harden?
No. You know who it is.
Luka.
Nope. 115 touches per game, which is the only way a player would feasibly be able to average. Exactly. The only way a player would be able to put up stat lines of 30, 15, and 15, which is literally, if you're not paying attention, what Jokic is doing right now. He's playing 40 minutes a game. Denver's running him ragged just to win early regular season games. They are.
Yeah.
We'll see how long that
it might kill him.
Sustainable. But that is heliocentrism, right? The notion that you're the guy. Everything runs through you. Who could you say that more about than a guy like Nikola Jokic? You mentioned Luka Doncic. Yes, Luka is absolutely up there. Trae Young, another great example of this. Surprisingly, number 2 in the NBA, though, in touches per game, is someone you would never expect. He's averaging, I said Jokic is at 115. The second guy is at 100, and you would never guess who this is unless you just looked at it.
Oh, I have no idea. Oh, maybe Cam Thomas?
Not Cam Thomas. That is a good guess. It's Jalen Johnson, also of the Atlanta Hawks.
What?
Yeah. It's Jalen.
Why?
That's a great question, and I need to watch more Hawks games to answer you.
Is it just no, because they don't even do a lot of handoffs.
They do a lot of Trae Young, Jalen Johnson two-man action, I guess. But I don't know exactly why it is. I like Jalen Johnson. It's just really surprising. Anyway, we talk about heliocentrism. What we don't talk about in the NBA a lot is what's the other thing? On the one side of the spectrum is heliocentrism. No one ever defines the inverse of heliocentrism. What is it?
It's called beautiful basketball.
Is it beautiful basketball? I was going to call it democracy.
Okay.
Democratic basketball.
Okay.
And here at the Timeline Podcast,
it's called blue sky basketball.
That's your second. You accuse me of pushing the narrative too much. That's your second reference today. Follow us at Blue Sky. We're posting in multiple places now. The Suns are playing democratic basketball. And the reason I say that is because if you look at the touch statistics this season, the first guy that you'll see who leads the Suns in touches per game is Tyus Jones, which I don't think should be super surprising. This is why they brought him in.
It was a little bit surprising to me.
He's the point guard. The point guard's supposed to set some things up. It's still surprising, though, because Tyus Jones, and this is the critical bit, Tyus Jones leads the Suns in touches, and he ranks 30th exactly in the NBA in touches per game. That's crazy. You'd expect every team to have roughly one guy in the top 30. Well, for the Suns, their guy is last. He's 30th. What that means is you have a very clear or very even balance of powers in the Suns offense, right?
Yeah.
Tyus Jones is 30th. Kevin Durant is 37th. He's averaging 67 touches per game. Devin Booker is 55th. The notion, first of all, that Devin Booker, one of the best players in the NBA, is now outside of the top 50 in touches per game. I mean, right there, yes, he's shooting worse than we expect, but right there is part of the reason why he's only averaging 23 points per game this season or something we weren't expecting from him. He's down to 62 touches per game. For reference, both Booker and KD were over 70 touches per game last year. Mm-hmm. And in many ways, it made the offense unsuccessful. It put this undue burden of facilitating on them, of playmaking, of play calling, right? Especially play calling.
Turnovers.
Yeah. And now we're seeing a little bit less from KD, a little bit less from Book, a little bit less from Bradley Beal. Tyus Jones is there. He's leading them in touches, but like not like a Trae Young, not like a Luka Doncic, of course, not like a Cade Cunningham, who's also up there, like 90, 95 touches per game. They're playing democratic basketball. They're playing random basketball. Everyone does a little bit of everything, to the point where it's frustrating sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't always want to see Mason Plumlee dribbling the ball up the floor after he gets a defensive rebound. Now,
he only has one really bad turnover doing that so far.
Granted, Mason Plumlee, I think we haven't really talked about him. I think he's actually been largely awesome for the team, and I think he's had some really good games as of late. I'm just saying there are certain things that they're empowering. Even the star players are empowering all of the role players on this roster to contribute to, which is great. That's exactly what Bud said was going to happen. It's also like a little bit scary to watch sometimes, but that's just what we're going to get. And is another example of Bud delivering ultimately on what he promised us, what the Suns' offensive system is going to look like. It's beautiful basketball. It's the beautiful game. It's democracy in action. I pledge allegiance to the flag. That's where we're fucking at. Happy Veterans Day to people. Thank you for your service, Mike Budenholzer. And now we can move on to whatever your next stat is, unless you have anything else to say about that.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I do think we should keep an eye on that over the course of the next few games without Kevin Durant and see where those touches fall. I think Devin Booker, assuming he feels better, is going to get the majority of those, but Bradley Beal, who's in the 50s, for touches right now, we'll see if that shoots up into the 60s over the course of the next few games, and how he does with that as well. I don't know. Let's see who else plays. No Monte Morris so far, but maybe, I don't know. We'll see what they do. I have a couple real quick, and then we'll get to voicemails. This is just something I think we should monitor the whole year. Basic team stats, where they rank. And I have 3-point attempts and turnovers. For 3-point attempts, they're 6th in the NBA now for 3-point attempts at 41.2. Significantly more than we even talked about them shooting. The extent to which they've bought into this, I think, is more than I ever imagined. They're shooting a ton of threes, and then turnovers, they're 10th best in the NBA with 10th least amount of turnovers in the NBA per game in that stat as well. They're doing a good job holding on to the ball. They could do better. Obviously, they can turn it over less if they're 10th, but they were really bad in that stat last year. I think they were 25th.
They're also pretty high up there.
Significantly better than last year.
Not only, because it's possible to not turn the ball over, but also not get assists, right? Like, if you say, to bring it up again, if you play Luka ball and you just have one...
Cam Thomas ball,
and you just have one guy dribbling out the clock, is it good to only commit 6 turnovers as a team if you also get 15 assists? Probably not long-term in the aggregate. What's nice to see about the Suns is that, let me pull it up, is that they're top 10 in assists, in addition to being top 10 in turnovers. Again, Bud delivering on the promise of what this team was going to be. Super encouraged by both of those stats.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Coach Bud has done a really good job. One of our friends, Dan Devine, who writes for Yahoo, actually wrote about Coach Bud. Bad timing for him. I feel bad, linking it to Kevin Durant right before Kevin Durant went down. But if you haven't read that, check out his piece on Yahoo, specifically talking about the way Bud has sort of transformed the Suns. There's some good stats in there as well. But yeah, it's impressive for him to join this team and find a way to get them to truly buy in to what he believes is the best for basketball at this time. And I'm excited to monitor this over the course of the season, and hopefully they continue to do what is best for this team going forward. You got anything else on this before we switch over to voicemails?
No, I'm excited to hear some of the listeners' thoughts, some of their voices, bring back another tradition that we've done in recent years with the voicemail line.
All right, we'll be right back, and we'll listen to some of your voicemails. (480-420-6553) is our phone number. You can call us technically anytime, day and night, and leave us a voicemail. We'll get to them occasionally throughout the season, and that this will be you guys leaving us voicemails, leaving us questions, giving us topics or things to talk about on the podcast, and we'll get through as many as we can today. We got quite a few, Sam, but we're going to try to get through all of them right now. You ready?
It'll be a long episode. That's okay. We've done them before.
Hey, what's going on, Mike and Sam? Big fan of the podcast here. Just had a quick question regarding Bradley Beal potentially moving to the bench. Do you think that there's any world where Coach Bud is able to talk him into that type of a role, being that he coached arguably one of the best six men of the year, or six men generally in NBA history, who is Manu Ginobili, coached him for 10 plus years for San Antonio? And then the other question I have regarding that same thing is, do we think that Coach Bud should force Bradley Beal to the bench, and best case scenario is he accepts and thrives in that role, and the opposite case scenario is he gets he's not happy in that role, but that leads to him eventually accepting the fact that he'll get traded and he'll waive that no trade clause, potentially bringing something back in return, even though there won't be much market for him. Again, love the podcast. Appreciate you guys. Wanted to ask those questions because curious your thoughts on whether or not Coach Bud's the right guy or the perfect guy to be able to get Brad to really accept and thrive in that six-man role potentially.
Bradley Beal's six man.
I think we have Bradley Beal's number one fan on that call. It's safe to say.
That's a topic that will never die this season, right?
No.
Who starts in that case?
Ryan Dunn, I guess, the way it's going.
It might be Ryan Dunn.
If you want a bigger lineup.
It could be Royce. Like the starters with Royce in Bradley Beal's spot. Extremely good so far this year. If you look at the numbers for that, small sample size,
I think it's a conversation that, to answer the question directly, it's a conversation that I think Bud would be willing to broach with Brad if he had to. But I don't think at a time. First of all, Kevin Durant's out for the next 2 weeks, so moot point until then. Obviously, because we need Brad. We need his scoring right now. He's going to play a lot of minutes. Even once KD comes back, it's just not a conversation you have when you're 8-2. Now, I understand the starting lineup net rating might not be great, but you need to see more disappointment, I think, from the team as a whole before you start really asking that question, right?
I just don't think it's going to happen. So I don't know that the Suns have a player that's good enough to put in Bradley Beal's place that makes perfect sense. I think if Ryan Dunn gets better and better and better throughout the season, which is definitely possible.
If he's OG Anunoby by season's end.
Yeah, I guess you can find the case for that. I don't think there's any case where forcing a guy to the bench and him being unhappy helps the Suns this season, though. To that second part of that question.
the forcing him to waive the no trade clause part is very funny. That's just that's very Ryan McDonough manipulative type. Like,
it's just real psychopath stuff. Yeah, but it would probably work. Honestly, it probably would work, but I don't think that would be good for the team as a whole, or their reputation with players ultimately.
I think the vibes are pretty good right now, and we don't need to mess with them unnecessarily. We're not there yet.
All right, let's listen to another one.
Hey guys, you guys do great work. Love listening in every week whenever you guys put a podcast. Quick question: what do you guys feel about Saddiq Bey and potentially trading for another similar player like him? I feel like we're still too small, and Suns still need a guard who can get their own shots and put a little bit less pressure on KD and Book, especially minutes when KD's off the floor. Hopefully he's all healthy. But do you feel like we're one missing piece away from potentially entering in the contender conversation? Thanks, guys. Oh, yeah, this is Suns Forever, and appreciate everything you guys put out. Thanks.
Saddiq Bey.
Like the question. Do you know who Saddiq Bey currently plays for? I'm going to put
the Washington Wizards?
Nice! Yes, you got it right, because if you had asked me, I would have forgotten and said the Atlanta Hawks. He has not played with the Washington Wizards yet this season because he has a knee injury. He does not have a return timetable. Maybe that changes by February, and then we can have this conversation more thoroughly. The interesting thing about Saddiq Bey, since you brought him up specifically in the question, is he makes less than Josh Okogie does at Josh Okogie's $8 million magic number. So I think this is a case of, look, if Saddiq Bey were making $15 million a year to be a mediocre wing, then no, you're not. Or like 12 million even. You're not interested in probably trading Grayson Allen for him. If it comes to be February, it's hard because they have such a glut of wings already, right? Like Saddiq Bey, I think would be an upgrade over Josh Okogie if you attach a pick. Is he good enough to distance himself from the Grayson Allen, Royce O'Neal, Ryan Dunn, even of the rotation? He makes them like a little bigger, but he doesn't make them a ton bigger, right? You know what I mean? So I think it's a name they could entertain. He's not probably like a guy I'm dying to have on the Suns personally.
The Wizards also have Jonas Valanciunas. Just throwing that out there.
What does he make?
If things like $10 million.
Okay.
If things completely fall off the rails here for Nurkic at any point of the season, there is a version of a trade where it's Jonas Valanciunas and Saddiq Bey for Nurkic, maybe, that you could potentially get. I don't know if they would do that without a pick or maybe second-round picks or something, but that is something that you could throw out there.
That would be pretty interesting.
I think Saddiq Bey is not very good and injured. I think that what you picture Saddiq Bey being in your mind, including me and a lot of people, I think, is better than the reality of Saddiq Bey. I think he's actually been sort of mediocre over the course of his career.
He definitely feels kind of Patrick Williams-y, right? Where it's like
his bad games are really bad. Like he could be really bad on the court. So it doesn't overly excite me. I don't know that he cracks the rotation for this team. Just as you mentioned, I think the Suns have better players than him at the position he plays, even if they're smaller. So there were times where I think the potential was high enough that it would have been worthwhile. The bloom, I guess, is off the rose for me with Saddiq Bey. But I don't know. Jonas Valanciunas, is he better than Nurkic? I don't know. They're pretty similar at this point in their careers.
Valanciunas
if we're looking at a center
is a way better finisher. He has some of the same foot mobility stuff, but he definitely has a better post game than Nurkic. By a long shot, I think. And I think if you had the opportunity, like you're saying, if you had the opportunity to be creative and get both in one fell swoop, then I would listen. If it's just Josh Okogie and 2031 for Saddiq Bey, I'm probably good.
Yeah, I think I agree. You ready for another one?
Let's do it.
Hey, Mike. Hey, Sam. Question for you guys. I know Book has been dealing with illness and changing his role. Do we think we will ever see, or I guess in this iteration of the Suns, we'll see more of a scoring first guy that we're accustomed to in Book's career? He's been focusing on moving the ball. He, objectively is one of the best, if not the best, passing shooting guard in the NBA. We already know he's the best small forward in the NBA. Just want to know if we're going to see that level of scoring again. Looks like maybe the Olympics has helped him buying into playing amazing team dynamics, which has led to our 8-3 start. Just curious what you guys think. And by the way, this is Matt. Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Matt. Good question. Will we ever see a score first version of Devin Booker? And my answer to that, I'm curious what you think, Sam, is in the playoffs. That seems to be when he sort of morphs to looking for that shot more often. But overall, I think we know what Devin Booker is, and he's a guy who plays team basketball first and will always look for whatever the best potential shot is, regardless of who's on the floor with him.
Yeah, my answer is we better see it. And I think, to be more serious, I think we will see it probably as soon as the next couple of weeks. But I do agree with you. In the playoffs, he turns into a different beast. He also does always approach each game, I think, with a very mature, very professional attitude as a basketball player. But to be selfish for a second, this is something I've talked about with Book for a while. He is chasing that scoring record, and he is less than a season away from passing Walter Davis on that scoring record, right? I think he doesn't probably think about that too much. Like, it maybe kind of just feels for a lot of people like this inevitable thing. But it's definitely something I'm tracking. Like every 5 or 10 games for Devin Booker, I just find myself gravitating towards those charts again of where is he? How far off from Walter Davis is he for number one? I really think that's going to be a monumental moment for obviously Devin Booker, but also for Suns history. And it would help if we get a stretch of him scoring 30 at a certain point to approach that number a little bit faster. I think we're going to get it pretty soon.
the Suns would have to be bad, I think, for him to shoot a lot. And he's just surrounded by capable offensive players. So when the help comes, when the double comes, it's usually a better shot if he passes it at this point. And whether or not that shot goes in it varies depending on the game. But you know what?
Yeah.
But yeah.
He also believes in the hot hand as a hooper, right? Like he comes from the school of hoop. And so he hasn't had a lot of opportunities where he's been the hot hand this season, but I think we're going to see it pretty soon. Like Book, when he goes on a scoring run, when he puts together like 3 shots in a row and he knows he's feeling it, because Kevin Durant has been that guy for the first 10 games. But now if Booker comes out in the first quarter and he's that guy and he understands that he needs to be that guy, that's where we're going to see some of the runs of, okay, he's firing off 5, 6, 7 shots in a row and he understands the assignment. He'll get there. He'll get there. These questions about Devin Booker, I'm not worried about Devin Booker. He's going to find it soon.
Mike and Sam, Alex here from Gilbert. I was just curious, who do you think will be the biggest benefactor of all these injuries here with Nurk and Beal and KD? Love the show, guys. Thanks for doing it. Bye.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah.
I think
Who's the biggest benefactor, right?
I think the best. Excuse me. I think the biggest benefactor is Tyus Jones, who is thinking.
Interesting. Yeah.
Who is thinking about his expiring contracts and how if he. I mean,
contract year Tyus Jones.
Yes, but yes, like don't tell me that, because this is what he did with Ja Morant, right? If Tyus Jones averages like 16 and 9 for the next 2 weeks, or whenever one of the big 3 is injured this season, aren't teams going to take notice of that? Like his next contract, he's not signing for another minimum, folks. He's not. He is getting a lot more money next round. That's the idea. The whole idea for Tyus Jones coming here was so that he'd be on a team that is frequently in the spotlight, where he's going to have more touches, where he's going to have the opportunity to platform himself for all of the GMs, all of the executives around the league. So I think the guy who benefits the most, we've already kind of seen it with Tyus. He's averaging like 20 points per game in the last 2 games. He's got the floater. He's got the off-ball ability to hit threes whenever Book, gives him a pass right in the pocket.
Very efficient, yeah. 52%, by the way, is what he's shooting from Book, just to reiterate.
From Book, yeah. I think overall he's at like 42 on threes now. Shoots well on his free throws. Doesn't get there a lot, but he's a good free throw shooter as well. And yeah, Tyus is going to benefit. If we're talking about who's going to benefit the most to like make the Suns better right now, I think that's a slightly different question. But what do you think?
Brad, I hope, right? I want it to be Booker at 23 points per game. It's clearly going to be Booker overall, I think, right? Like, that's going to be the guy who's going to be shooting more. The Sacramento game was not a great example of what this overall time where KD's missing is going to be, because he wasn't right physically. But I think Booker is probably going to be the guy that benefits the most. But if we get a couple of games from Brad where he scores 30, that's kind of the ideal scenario, because this starting lineup has struggled really to put it all together at times. And, if we can have a scenario where KD, who is always KD, comes back and it continues to be KD, and Book and Brad are both playing well at that time, that's the best case for them to go on like a stretch run where they win a bunch of games and actually boost that net rating overall. So Booker probably, but Brad ideally as well.
Do you remember Brad's season high last year? What it was off the top of your head?
38?
Better than that. He had a single. So he had, I think the one you're thinking of is he had a 37-point game against the Lakers where he made a lot of threes.
Yeah, that's right. Washington, he had 40.
Washington, he had 43.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
It'd be so crazy to see a game like that from him. Because I think that's like two sides of Brad in those 2 games. The Lakers game was Brad being, yes, the third banana in the way that the Suns were playing, just taking what the offense gave him, but he just hit every 3. The Washington game, I don't remember who else played in that game. I'm going to have to look if anyone else was out.
I think the whole team played, but everyone knew. It was his first time playing against Washington.
Yeah, the whole team played, but KD took 9 shots, Booker took 11 shots.
They knew.
And it was just give Brad the ball. And he's scoring 43. And it was a blowout. Everyone in the starting 5 was like a plus 20 or more. He only needed to play 31 minutes in that game. It would be awesome to have a performance like that from Brad coming soon.
What's up, guys? My name is Joseph, Arizona transplant living in New Jersey. I want to know if you guys would have subbed in Dunn in place of O'Neal to put a body on DeMar DeRozan in last night's game when he absolutely demolished us for the last 5 minutes in overtime as well. What do you think?
Thanks, Joseph. Dunn in place of Royce O'Neal. Has Dunn earned that trust from you, Sam, to be in a big moment? I know we talked about it a little earlier.
Yes. That's what he was drafted to do. You look at him on the season already, that's what he's doing. I get it. He missed all 3 of his 3-point attempts last night. And again, I also, I suspect maybe something was going on behind the scenes that we just didn't know about with Ryan Dunn, because he did have to miss a game. But yeah, I would have played him. What about you?
I pitched the idea of putting Dunn in for Mason Plumlee and going 5 out small. Sabonis was having a really bad fourth quarter. I don't think he scored at all in overtime. And the idea would be that you could scramble and really try to double. Maybe you put Dunn on DeMar DeRozan and then help off of him at the 3-point line if they force it to Sabonis with Royce O'Neal on them. So, Mason, I think, was playing really well. Don't get me wrong. I just think there's a scenario there where you're down enough and you're trying to claw your way back into it, finding ways to put shooters on the floor, and guys who can be really aggressive defensively to try and force the ball out of his hands may have been the best scenario. So I would have trusted him, and I think even just putting him in place for Royce would have been fine too. I just think Royce has been good, and it's hard to take him off the floor entirely. So Mason would have been the guy that I would have taken out in that scenario. But it's a good sign that, we all kind of trust him enough to give him those moments.
Ethical Hooper here. So there's a ton of reasons why we lost that game last night. But how many more losses until we shift over to it's so over instead of we're so back? And what do you want to see from the team to preserve the hashtag vibes while Katie's gone? Love the show.
Thank you, Ethical Hooper.
It's a great question. I would expect nothing less from an Ethical Hooper.
They got a back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 losses in a row. Are you already it's so over?
Well, look, you always need to find a way to tread water without your best player, right? I mean, look at the Clippers, right? We're talking about what they're doing. They're above 500 without Kawhi Leonard this season. A lot of that is the magic of Ty Lue, and the Suns have no excuse. I understand they're battered, and we've talked about that, but their next game's against Utah tomorrow. After that, they play Sacramento again. Then they play OKC. OKC is going to be without Chet.
Mm-hmm.
Minnesota, that's
still going to be a tough game. Yeah.
Minnesota will still be tough. Orlando, no Paolo. I mean, most of these teams have big names out. It's not just us, right? So they got to find a way. I don't think they have to go 6-0 without KD, but they have to win some of these games. If they lost 3 in a row, I don't know about it's so over, but I would not be feeling great.
I would just shift over to Kevin Durant MVP narrative and really ride that.
Yeah, maybe.
For when he comes back, because honestly, that would point towards that pretty well if that's how badly it can fall apart. But I'm not even going to entertain thinking about it's so over. So let's listen to another one.
Hey, boys. It's Berto from the Discord. My thoughts are about Book, and just curious if you've seen anything in the early film that suggests he's not really reaching our usual high standards of him through this early part of the season, or if it's just this recent sickness that has shown him to be a little bit under average as we expected to be. Appreciate it, boys. Later.
Berto kind of predicting the early topics on this podcast already. I think there's a big topic of the podcast is Booker. Anything else to add from what we talked about earlier, Sam?
No, just that, similar to, there's a reason Berto asked that question, right? So, if you're looking at Book right now and you see him being hesitant, your eyes are not lying to you, right? We all see it. I think for us, it's just trusting in the huge body of work of what he's done for this team, and all the playoff performances and whatever, all the sweat, blood, and tears, whatever. There's a reason that we have faith in this guy, and that we believe he's going to get it back pretty soon. But yeah, I mean, there have definitely been a couple of disappointing things in the film. I just think it's like probably more so comes down to whatever he's battling at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I agree. And yeah, let's listen to another one here.
Yo, this is Scotty Coe, now on Blue Sky and X as well. Calling because I saw the Penguin episode yesterday, and I don't know if you caught it or not, but if you did, which player would be likely to be axed, as Vic was? Thank you. Bye-bye.
I don't watch that show, Sam, do you?
No, I meant it. So he's talking about the Penguin, which is the Batman spinoff. Right, the Colin Farrell stars as the Penguin. I have not seen the show. And Scotty, I love you. I don't know what you're referencing exactly.
Yeah, me neither. Sorry, Scotty.
But I will catch up on it soon. I promise.
I watched episode 1 and it's not for me. That's all I'll say.
I've heard
not a show for me.
I've heard mixed things. You know, I've heard mixed things. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, a lot of people told me to stick through episode 3 and I just wasn't interested after episode 1 personally, but yeah. All right, here we go.
Hey, y'all. Hey, Mike. Hi, Sam. It's Rice here. My question for the mailbag today is, we've seen Bud be a really good coach with a lot of diverse amount of talent, with stars missing time in the lineup, but we're going to be missing, as I think you said, 4 out of the top 8 guys, potentially, with Beal, KD, Dunn, and Nurk, all probably missing time in both with an illness, between where in the spectrum of where Doc Rivers is the bottom, or maybe even Earl Watson is the bottom, and Eric Spoelstra and Ty Lue are at the top, where would you put Bud in that spectrum of coaches who can maximize talent when missing a lot of depth and stars? That's all I got for you.
That's
a good one.
That's a really
good question.
That's a really good question from a guy who says that his name is Rice, but he sounds a lot like Abdul Nader to me. If I had to guess. For those who don't know, Rice, our buddy Rice, thank you, Rice, for calling in, starred in a YouTube video where he had to pretend to be an NBA player. It was actually really, really good.
Jesser is the channel.
Really good job. Yeah, really good job by Rice. So shout out to you. That was a great video. As for your question, do you want to take this one first, Mike? Where does Bud rank?
It's interesting because I don't know. We don't know. I mean, I guess if I had been a Bucks fan, I would have a better idea of knowing. So that the gist of his question, if anyone didn't follow it, is where does Bud rank when trying to utilize the players that the Suns have or a team has when they're missing guys?
Yeah, the most
good
out
news
of the
is because the good news is it seems as though we only know for sure that KD's out. Nurkic is probably the guy that's most likely to miss time. Bradley Beal not on the injury report at all. Devin Booker not on the injury report at all. Ryan Dunn not on the injury report as well. So those 3 guys potentially could miss time if anything is re-aggravated. I think Devin Booker seems to be on the mend. He's playing. I can't imagine it's going to get worse at any time soon. So luckily, I think there is a chance that we don't have to see a lot of that other than finding ways to fill the biggest hole, which is Kevin Durant missing time. So I'm not sure where he would rank. I think we'll have opportunities to learn that over the course of the season, or hopefully we won't have those opportunities and they stay healthy.
Yeah.
And we'll learn more about him. But
look,
what do you think?
I think there's, coaching only goes so far. We all know that. Yes, there are wizards like Spoelstra and Ty Lue and whatever, but theoretically in a disaster, in a doomsday scenario where the Suns suddenly have to rely on guys like, for people who have noticed, the Valley Sun season started. If guys like Ty Washington and Jalen Bridges and Colin Gillespie are up playing big league basketball, playing real minutes at a certain point, what is Bud's ability to coach a team like that to wins? I think it would be pretty tough. I think it would be tough for any coach to be able to do that, depending on just the absolute lack of depth that you would have at a certain point. If seriously 4, 5, 6 guys are injured. I do think the reputation that I know that follows Bud is that he's more of a big ideas, implement the system guy than maybe let me maximize this particular guy who went undrafted. I don't know that that's necessarily been who people think of him as. But I would love to be proven wrong, and I would love to, maybe even see an example of it at some point in his son's tenure.
Yeah, I guess we're going to find out, and it'll be interesting to see.
Ty Washington and Jalen Bridges, by the way, killing it in the Valley Suns game so far.
The home opener was during this podcast. I haven't checked the score of that.
Neither
Hopefully
have I.
they won that one. Yeah. All right, here we go.
Hello, my name is Jared. I've been listening to the podcast ever since the bubble, and I've been listening to every episode, even after the losses since. 2 questions. I'll try to make them short. First one is, every single game the Suns have played has been close. There hasn't been any blowouts yet. Just wondering if you guys are worried about that. I'm not. Just want to know your guys' take, because every team they've played has been pretty good, even the Clippers, which I did not expect. So wondering what you guys thought about every game being a clutch time game. Second, I was wondering if you guys thought Booker is taking too many threes. I like how the offense is taking a lot of them, but I feel like Booker should be still operating in the mid-range. If he's open, he can take the threes, but I'd like him to be more aggressive in the mid-range and have everyone else do more of the load work for the three-point shot making. Just want to know your guys' take on that. Big fan. See you later. Bye.
2 questions there. Thanks, Jared, by the way. First one is, are you concerned that every game is close for the Suns so far, Sam?
Yeah, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't not concerned about it. I think Utah is going to be a good test tomorrow. Any team has NBA players, the Utah Jazz included. Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, they've got veterans. But that would be a nice one to just go in and blow out a team.
Not have to be within 3 points.
Yeah, exactly.
In the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, or pretty soon, guys. Get it together a little bit. We got to see it eventually. I like to see the clutch gelling as well. But safe to say, what does net rating mean after 10 games? I don't think it means much. What does net rating mean after 82 games? It means a lot. And so if 82 games in, or 60, 70 games in, whatever, the Suns have a good record, but they're still 12th in net rating, then I think they're probably not a serious contender. At a certain point, you got to just know how to reach another gear and blow a team out in a way that we haven't seen from them yet. So we got to see it eventually. Do you have anything on that before the second question?
I think there's a chance that their record is inflated because of good clutch play, and that's a good problem to have this early. I do think that they are implementing a dramatically different system. They have new players that they're trying to implement into the team, most notably Tyus Jones and Ryan Dunn, and Mason Plumlee as well, who plays a lot of important minutes for this team. And so they are trying to figure some things out, but the biggest change has been Coach Bud so far and how differently they're playing, and I think they're finding ways to get used to that. And that actually leads into the second question, which is Devin Booker taking too much threes, which is a very succinct way to talk about how he's been playing. And I think the answer to that to me is yes, over the course of the next few weeks with Kevin Durant out, he probably needs to shoot other types of shots than that. But when Kevin Durant's playing, I think there's an element of leading by example that Devin Booker is doing in those cases, which is just trying to encourage everyone to buy into the system that Bud is trying to implement.
That's a really good point.
And early in a season, him shooting a ton of threes is probably pretty effective for the rest of the team to see that and understand that even he's doing it.
Yeah.
Therefore, we are all required to do it.
Yeah. The lead by, that's a really good point. I mean, I didn't even think of putting it that way, but just almost if you think about it from the perspective of watching Devin Booker shoot threes and knowing that what he's doing hurts him a little bit in his basketball.
Percentage-wise, he's not been great.
He's I don't want to be doing this. Every three that I take physically hurts me in the hooper brain that I have. But you're watching me do it, and so Grayson Allen, you better be taking them, and Ryan Dunn, you better be taking them, and Yusuf Nurkic, if I pass you the ball, I even want you taking them, right? Yeah. I really do think there is something to that. But for sure, while KD's out, he needs to be taking 20-plus shots, and he needs to be getting to his spots in the mid-range and doing all the classic book stuff, too.
Yeah. And we'll see if that changes. I think this Sacramento game, unfortunately, just worst timing for the Suns so far. All right, here we go.
Hey there, it's Chris Hansen. Just wanted to call and say hello and that you're welcome for the name of the podcast. But I have nothing else to really say other than I hope y'all are doing well. And can't wait to listen to the podcast this season.
Thanks, Chris.
What's up, Chris? Appreciate that.
Chris, longtime listener. on the podcast in the first season. Very nice guy. And I think he came up with the joke of calling the Suns when they were tanking the timeline instead of the process. And yes, we did steal it. So thank you, Chris.
It was a bit of I think there was like, I don't know what year it is exactly, but like 2016-ish, 2015-ish maybe. Definitely like in the heat of that McDonough era, where I think it was...
He said that word a lot. Yeah.
But it was started by, so there was a group of people back when, like it was a bright side of the sun thing at first. And there were a group of writers and frequent contributors to Bright Side of the Sun who were also very active at Twitter, very active on Twitter at the time, and were kind of like some of the first friends and mutuals that both you and I made, maybe, when we were logging onto Twitter, making our accounts in 2018 or so. Chris was among them, so shout out Chris. We hang out at different spaces online now, but
partially thanks to Chris.
Partially thanks to Chris too, and stoked to still have you as a listener after all these years.
All right, here you go. We got two more, I think.
What up, y'all? This is Kyle, longtime listener in LA. Just wanted to get your general thoughts on the closing lineup, especially on the heels of how that recent Sacramento game ended. How do you feel that Bud is stuck with Tyus down the stretch these past few games, despite how eager teams are to put him in pick and roll in almost every stretch, and knowing that eventually we're going to get to a playoff path that involves Luka and Shea and guys like that, where that issue may very well be exacerbated by continuous including of him in pick and rolls. Also, how would you feel about possibly letting Dunn get those reps over Tyus and Royce when you got guys like DeMar last night, who's just on an absolute heater, just to be able to give more on-ball pressure and screen navigation? Thanks, guys. Love the show.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, thanks. But Kyle. Yeah, Kyle was his name, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting, too, in these last two games, actually, Tyus actually did sit in the closing lineup of the Dallas game, in particular, where Dallas was really kind of abusing him. He had a really good game outside of that, but there was just a stretch early in the second half, and then also towards the end of the game where both Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic were just putting him in pick and rolls, forcing the switch because those guys are so good at screen navigation, and then just scoring over him because he's too small.
Yeah.
So he was taken out in that game.
In Sacramento, they were insistent on not switching him onto DeMar and doing kind of a show instead, and just sort of he would bump off, but they weren't going to concede the switch. Ultimately, it didn't matter because, as Kyle pointed out, DeMar cooked Royce anyway, and maybe that wouldn't have happened against Ryan Dunn. I think it's interesting.
But then De'Aaron Fox did close that game out with a few jumpers on Tyus as well, though. I think.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so it's going to be another conversation we have throughout the season. Look, I think we all know why Tyus came to the Suns, right? It's because of that turnover stat that you quoted earlier, Mike, and he's made a difference. They're turning the ball over less. They're getting more assists. The ball has an energy. It's finding more people. He's also making threes when he plays off ball. I think what's been so encouraging, though, in a couple of their clutch games recently, you talked about that Dallas win. Can the Suns find ways to do what they never did last season, which is, let's see what happens when we take Tyus out of the game in the last 5 minutes, and can we still run a set effectively? Mm-hmm. Can we post up KD and not immediately, see him get doubled and stripped just because Tyus is no longer on the floor? If we do that for a couple of weeks and that's working, and you can still run a successful clutch offense without Tyus, then absolutely. Tyus becomes completely irrelevant to the closing minutes at that point. You still want him to start. You still want him to play 25, 30 minutes. But then, Royce is your guy. Ryan Dunn is your guy. Whoever's going to make you the most versatile, scheme-effective defensive player or the best lockdown, perimeter, whatever, that's going to be your guy, right? So, but I think Bud just needs to establish a little bit of trust first before he's willing to go there, because he understands also what Tyus is doing for their offense generally.
I think what I thought about more than anything in the Sacramento game is just the way that Kevin Durant lets you create these fascinating lineups because he's 7 feet tall. It's such a cheat code in that you can go to KD at center, which they clearly would have done in that game with Nurkic out, had KD been playing, and probably would have closed out that game on a pretty dramatic run, and it wouldn't have gone to overtime in that case, which they did against Sacramento twice last year, if you remember those games in particular. But not having him does create this sort of crunch of guys who are all 6'5"-ish, that it's the versatility of what you're trying to do lineup-wise when you're getting good players on the floor, it's impacted by that. And Ryan Dunn is the guy, to your point, Kyle, that could maybe help you out a little bit in that case, and maybe you find ways to get him in there a little bit more to make some more versatility out of that soup of guys who, they're all around the same size, because that's the way the Suns are currently constructed. Or maybe it does lead to a trade at some point of the season of Grayson, or for example. It's tough to find players that are effective that are a little bit bigger in that case. Maybe that game was the case for Dorian Finney-Smith if you're trying to make the case for him.
Stop trying to make Dorian Finney-Smith happen.
I think it might. There's just not a lot of other guys, There's just not a lot. All right, one more.
Hey, Mike and Sam. This is David. Big fan of you guys. Been a subscriber and listener for years. Just have kind of two quick questions for you. With Kevin Durant being out for a couple weeks here, how do you see his minutes being distributed? I know Sam was tweeting about Bol potentially, and then like a nightmare scenario if Durant is out, and then maybe after yesterday's game, Beal and Nurkic are out for a while, and we're down 3 starters. How do you see the minutes going from there? Thanks, guys.
Thank you, David. It took 14 questions, but someone asked about Bol. We are so back. I was, if no one asked it, I was going to ask you, Mike. Do you think, just straight up yes or no, next 6 games, do you think Bol plays non-garbage time minutes at some point?
Yes.
You think he does?
Yeah, I think he does. I think, I think he does. Especially if Nurkic misses time again. I think you just have to find ways to play a little bit of size out there at times, and it's tough.
And
he
was good last year. I don't know. I mean, I understand that there's like reasons to not trust him defensively and whatever, but I think like he's not poison. Bol minutes last season were not poison by any stretch of the imagination. They were pretty good. And I would hope that sometime in the next 2 weeks, Oso Ighodaro got to play a little bit. He was actually really good yesterday, I thought. And similarly, I would hope that Bud finds a little bit of time just to experiment with Bol pretty soon. But in terms of like more seriously, who's going to get the brunt of the minutes, it's going to be Royce and Dunn, of course. Royce is going to be playing 30 minutes a game. There's a solid chance that Dunn gets up to 20 or 25 as well, I think. And hopefully we don't see Brad have to actually miss any time, because then it would get more complicated. Grayson would have to play a lot. Damian Lee would probably have to play at that point. We've seen Josh Okogie in the last couple games too. That's another guy.
Yes,
who's gotten out there.
Seems to be higher in the rotation than Bol now as well. Yeah. Just a reminder, Grayson Allen averaged 13.5 points as a starter last year and shot 46% from 3. This is the guy who should have this is the guy who had his minutes increase last year when players were injured. When Bradley Beal missed games, Grayson Allen started and then found his way into that starting lineup for the rest of the season. He's the guy who, if he was playing like he did last year, should dramatically benefit, numbers-wise, from a player missing time. I know it's not size comparison the same. Of course, he's not going to play the same position. But offensively, like if you had to redistribute shots based on percentages last year, a large percentage of those would go to Grayson Allen. Unfortunately, he's not playing like that, but this would be a great time for it to click and for him to put it together and for him to find those minutes to really find a way to play like last year.
Everyone give it up for Anchor Arms. He's going to need it in the next couple of weeks. Would love to see him just get some driving lanes, maybe a pull-up 3 or 2. I feel like I saw him trying it in the first few games, and he just didn't hit, but I still believe in that shot for Grayson.
I almost would rather him shoot the 3 over like almost every drive that he's driven so far. The drives haven't even been terrible.
You need a little bit of give and take, I think.
I know. It's just that he needs to find a way to get it back is all. And if that means shooting a little bit more, I don't know if it does. Who knows? I really don't know. But it would be really nice for him to find this as the time to put it together for the season now that the Suns need a little bit more offense. It didn't happen in that last game. I don't know what he finished with, but it wasn't 9. It wasn't pretty.
9 points, 3 of 13 from the field. That was his stat line against Sacramento. And he did play Bud did play him 26 minutes. So that's more than enough time for Bud to say, hey, we need you. We need some offense here. I think Bud was probably hoping for more than 9 points.
Extra long episode this early in the season. Thanks everyone for hanging out with us. Thank you so much for all those voicemails, all the questions we got. We appreciate it. Extra podcast episode coming Thursday after the back-to-back Tuesday and Wednesday. That's on our Patreon. If you want to sign up for that, patreon.com/thetimeline. Don't forget to check out ethicalhoops.com for all of our merchandise. We appreciate you all. We'll be back very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.